I am so excited for today's video because we're talking about our favorite books of 2023. It is weird that 2023 is coming to a close, but let's celebrate by talking about our favorite books. And I will admit that this year was rocky. I had a bunch of books that I was really excited for that I felt like didn't deliver. Was I the problem? I don't really know. But these books carried me through. They surprised me, they delighted me, and now they're my favorites. So let's do this. So fun fact, my dress strap I thought was my curly hair. I thought when I was filming that was a curl. So you're just going to see that for some of the video. Look, we're all human here. These things happen. We're rolling with it. I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible because I have 15 books that we need to talk about. But the first book we have to talk about is A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Okay, we just need to talk about the fact that this book got the most mixed reviews. Some people were like, this book is not it. I don't think it should have been written, blah, blah, blah. You probably heard the negative reviews yourself. And then there were other people that were like, this is amazing. I didn't even think we would ever be able to get a story like this. And this is a gift. I am a Hunger Games fan. I love the Hunger Games. I feel like that series specifically, both the books and the movies have been an anchor in my life. Anytime I've ever gone through anything, the Hunger Games is there for me. So I basically just tried to ignore the noise and go in as blind as possible. And I will admit that this book is soft in its delivery. If you were looking for like, bam, punch you in the face action, this is not the book for you. But it did blow me away. And it was one of those experiences that once you get to the end and you're finished it, you're like, I see what you did, Suzanne Collins. So if you don't know anything about this book, this is the prequel book to The Hunger Games that follows President Snow, pre-President Snow, I should say. And his name is Coriolanus Snow. I also thought that it was Cornelius, which I mean, at first I was like, why is it Coriolanus? But now it's like, why would it be Cornelius? It's very clearly Coriolanus. But it follows him as he becomes a mentor for the 10th annual Hunger Games. It was like a time machine to be able to go back to this world, but also see it in a different state because the capital is not what we know it to be in the series. It's so different. Everything is post-war and everyone is just holding on to little bits of power that they had from before the war. This book is layered and it is smart. There were so many Easter eggs, and to be honest, I don't think I understand the hate for this book, and especially with the movie. And the movie was brilliant. The movie was everything I could have hoped it could be. It really just shows the making of President Snow in such a great way that was totally unexpected, and I loved it. Then we have to talk about Betting on You by Lynn Painter. So if you don't know anything about it, it follows two characters, Charlie and Bailey. They meet on a plane. They both come from families of divorce, and they do a little bit of bonding on this trip, even though they do not like each other. They don't like each other at all. But they keep running into each other over the years, which I love. And then they end up working together at this, it's like a hotel, but it's also a theme park for the summer. And at their job, they end up placing a bet on their friends and coworkers' love lives. And through work, they get to spend more time together and a friendship forms and other feelings of the heart happen. And I loved it. One of the things I enjoyed so much about this book is the fact that it was longer. I feel like we don't get very long romance books, especially in YA. And because of that, we got amazing buildup. We got something that felt so flawless. So when it's friends, not even friends, it was like major dislike to like. It. I thought it was so good. We just have to switch lanes very quickly to adult paranormal romance. From what I'm understanding, this is a very big deal that this is traditionally published, and that is The Fake Mate. This technically is an Omegaverse book, and if you are below the ages of 18, cover thine ears. Because the stuff is spicy. And I just want to say that I am not the authority on this. I went in totally blind, didn't know what to expect, didn't even know what it was. So there was some Googling. And if you do some Googling yourself, just be prepared because you never know what Google's going to throw at you. But essentially, Omegaverse is spicy shifter / werewolf romance. And that's what this is. But before you're like, okay, well, I definitely can't read that. That's not my jam. This is probably one of the best romance books that I have ever read, especially if you like fake dating. I said what I said and I can't take it back. No, I won't take it back. This was good. It follows two doctors, one of which is an ER doctor named Mackenzie. The other one is a heart doctor. His name is Noah. They both have reasons for needing a fake mate. So they decide to fake date, and the tension, the buildup, it was flawless. And the spice was unreal. Very good, very good. 10 out of 10 would 100% recommend. The only thing is, just go in knowing it's an Omegaverse book. If that feels like something you want to try it out because it was so entertaining. Yeah, I think this list is a bit all over the place because now we're going to talk about adult historical fiction. When I was making this list, maybe I should have placed that a little differently than right after The Fake Mate, but who cares? We're now going to talk about lessons in chemistry. So this follows our main character, Elizabeth Zott. She is a scientist in the 60s. She works at this research facility that, I mean, in the 60s alone, it was not known for gender equality, but this research facility itself does not see how privileged they are to have Elizabeth Zott working for them. She is an icon. So she's working at this research facility. She's not appreciated, and she meets a guy and they fall in love. And then life takes her in a very unexpected direction, and it leads to her hosting a cooking show. And Elizabeth, she writes her own rules, and she decides that she is going to host this cooking show the way that she wants to. So she ends up teaching women more than just how to cook. It was so inspiring. The whole time I was reading it, I was just like, women in STEM, women in STEM. I loved her. I loved the story. It was totally unexpected. And if you like audiobooks, listen to the audiobook for this one because it is so good. I truly feel like the narrator is Elizabeth Zott. Then I want to talk about Bonesmith. This is the first in a YA fantasy duology that totally caught me by surprise. So this follows our main character, Ren, who is in her final trial to become a Valkyr. And a Valkyr protects a Reaper, and a Reaper helps ghosts transition to the afterlife. So like I said, Ren was in her final trial and she was sabotaged. And then because of that, she was sent to the wall. And this book very much reminds me of that aspect of Game of Thrones. If you've seen the show, if you've heard anything about it, there's a wall and there's stuff on the other side of the wall that is not great. And the wall protects the land. Pretty self-explanatory. It's a wall. But when Ren is at the wall, an opportunity arises for her to save a prince. And she's like, this is my golden opportunity to prove myself to my family, to my house. And if I do impress them, I can retake the trial, become a Valkyr. Bob's your uncle. I'm a bonesmith. I don't think I've ever read anything like this before. I used to be a hardcore Game of Thrones fan. I loved that show. I mean, we all know that it's not known for its amazing ending. So it was really nice to be able to read a book that reminded me of aspects of that show and still have a completely unique magic system and fun characters and a great adventure too. There are ghosts and ghost-like things in this book, so be prepared, but I was not spooked. I was not scared. I half read this, half listened to the audiobook. The audiobook for this is stellar. Highly recommend. And if you feel like it, give this one a shot. Then we just have to talk about The 7-Year Slip. This is an adult contemporary that has a little bit of a magical realism aspect to it, which is my bread and butter. I love this stuff. So the main character in this, Clementine, she's going through it a little bit, so she decides to stay at her late aunt's apartment. And when she opens the door and she walks through, she sees that a guy is already living there. And she's like, what the heck are you doing here? Turns out that he is currently 7 years in the past, and the only way for them to communicate is in this apartment. And this doesn't scare Clementine because her aunt always made jokes about how magical her apartment was, but Clementine didn't really think too much about it until she saw the guy in her apartment, which is fair. I mean, that's a pretty valid thing. I probably might have thought the same thing too. I mean, I want to believe in magic, so maybe I would have totally bought it. I don't know. This isn't about me. It's about Clementine. I think the main focus is Clementine, and then you have the romance. My only complaint, and I wouldn't even say complaint, I would say desire, is that I wish that this book was longer because there was so much goodness and I was having so much fun, and then it was over and I was sad that it was over because it was so good. This feels like a perfect summer read. It felt like summer in New York. It felt like I was eating lemon meringue pie at a corner bistro restaurant sipping a seltzer. That sounds nice. So yeah, that's the vibe of this book. Loved it. Loved the guy. Loved Clementine. Loved the growth. Loved everything. Just wish it was longer. Now we have to talk about Rebecca Ross. I truly believe that she was put on this planet to write books. I don't know if she was a writer in another life, but she's a writer in this one. And I'm so grateful because A River Enchanted was everything that people said it was and more. So this is the first book in an adult fantasy duology that I believe is rooted in Scottish lore. And it is a multi-POV book, but the first character that you meet is Jack. And Jack is from the Isle of Cadence, and the Isle of Cadence is split in half. And the two halves don't like each other. They're warring. Not really warring. They have beef. Jack is not on the Isle of Cadence right now. He's on the mainland and he is there at university. He's learning how to be a bard and just like do all things musical because that is his talent. Because people on the Isle of Cadence have magical talents. It's a thing you learn about if you read the book. And one day he's living his life and he's summoned from the mainland back to the Isle of Cadence. And this is because some girls are going missing. So Jack has to help his childhood rival, his childhood nemesis, who is the daughter of the leader of his side of the Isle, help and find these girls. The writing is stunning. The romance though, it's casual, but it's epic. And I just need everything to work out and I need more and I'm scared because there's magical things happening and I don't know what's going to happen next. And I haven't obviously read the second book in this duology, but I need to, but I also don't want to read it too soon because once I've read it, you know, and you can only read a book for the first time once. So you could read this at any time, but I feel like I loved it even more because I read it as fall was happening. Such an atmospheric read, but again, you can read whenever you want because it's gorgeous. It's perfect. I wouldn't change a single thing. In Rebecca Ross we trust, honestly. I've said it once and I'll say it again. I don't do well with cringe. I don't like reading cringe, all right? There are my own moments of cringe that I relive enough that I don't need to read someone else's, but this book, you can just get past the cringe. Okay, let me just tell you what it's about. So this follows our main character named Chandler. She is a ghostwriter and she just finished a job ghostwriting for like an influencer, like a public speaker of some kind. And when she goes to meet her, it's not pleasant. So it's safe to say that she's having a hard day, but then she meets Finn and they have this chemistry that just feels so organic and natural. And it was charming and it was fun to read about. So it's shocking that when they go to hook up later, it's not good. It's not good at all. And that is where the cringe is in this book. And if you can just get past that encounter between them, I promise it gets so much better. But it turns out that Chandler, her next job is to write a book for Finn, who is a celebrity. He used to be an actor on a TV show that is very much giving Teen Wolf vibes. So she ends up having to spend a lot of time with him and they end up talking about their night together and one thing leads to another and she ends up kind of helping him out in that department. So yes, this book does address some adult content, but I feel like this is not a stereotypically spicy book. There's so much other stuff happening here. You get quality representation. The characters are so charming and unique and lovable. This was probably one of the healthiest relationships that I have ever read about. The communication was pure goals. It was a sleeper hit for me. I did not expect it. Look, I'm owning it. I did not expect it, but this is very good. I feel like if you liked Weather Girl by the same author, you might like this one too. But just trust if you can get past the cringe. Then there's like no more cringe after that. And then it's really good. Then I'm going to pivot again and we're going to talk about This Is How You Lose the Time War, which is a science fiction novella that was so unique. I've never read anything like this before. So this follows two agents and we know them as Red and Blue, and they are on opposite sides of this war. I believe that it's Blue who leaves a letter in time to Red. I don't know what was going through Blue's head when they wrote this letter, but it's a bit of a taunt. And because of that, Red responds and then they end up striking up a correspondence, which is bad news bears. If anyone from their respective sides finds out that they're doing this, it's not good. It's not good at all. I think this is one of those books that I need to read again because I really felt like I was dropped in like a video game and I just had to acclimate very quickly. I loved the perspectives, how layered the plot was, even though that this is a very short book. It's a novella. I was moved and I was invested and I feel like, yes, this is not going to be for everyone, but I also feel like this is ahead of its time and I really enjoyed it. This was a really pleasant surprise for me this year. You know, when you read a book and it's the exact book that you need in that moment, like it just feels like right book, right time. That's what this book was for me. This is the companion sequel to When in Rome, and I do not recommend reading this without reading When in Rome first because it will spoil that entire book. And this one follows characters that you meet in that book as well. And this is an adult romance by Sarah Adams. She is known for her closed door romances, but I do feel like this is as close to opening the door that we have ever gotten from her before. So this follows two characters, one of which is Annie. She owns a flower shop in this small town that is very much giving Stars Hollow. She's looking to live life a bit more, so she decides that she's going to go on some dates. And when she is on one, she hears the guy that she's on a date with call her boring. He's like on the phone or something. I can't remember. She overhears it, but like rude. And she's hurt by this. She's like, I don't want to be boring. So she enlists the help of Will, who is a bodyguard, and he is in town for a very short period of time to be her coach, her dating coach. And they also kind of fake date too. So there's a bunch of moving pieces, and I loved all of them. It was so charming. The tension between the two main characters, it was so fun to read about, and I just loved it. Like, I loved it. This is exactly what I needed. I needed to laugh. I needed a feel-good read, and this is definitely that. Sometimes you just need like a cup of sunshine, and that's what this book was. Cup of sunshine. I've never said a cup of sunshine before, but I just did on the internet, and I have no regrets. So you may have seen me post about this next one very recently. I just finished it, and I truly love this book, and that is something more. So this follows a Palestinian-Canadian teenage girl named Jessie who was just diagnosed with autism. And because she's about to start her first year of high school, she creates a list of things for her to do and experience during that year. So she's experiencing new social situations, new friend situations, and romantic situations. You learn much more about her culture and her family, and I loved it. I feel like it showed what friendships can look like as well. I also really liked how the relationships were depicted in this book, because there is a male character in this that I feel like if you yourself have not experienced a guy like that, someone in your life will have. And I feel like there are lessons to learn there. And that definitely goes for her friend group as well. I thought it was a fantastic debut, and I can't wait to read what the author writes next. Now we're just going to take a minute and circle back to Rebecca Ross and talk about Dreams Lie Beneath. This is a standalone YA fantasy that was probably one of the most unique books that I have ever read, and I loved every second of it. This book to me feels like an actual legend. Like, this is a story that reads like something you would read in a story. So I just have to like set the scene here. So there is a mountain, and in the mountain there is a castle, like a kingdom, and there is a curse that happened that has bled into all of the towns surrounding the mountain that lay within this kingdom. And the curse basically is that anyone who doesn't drink this potion to have a sleepless night, their nightmares could become real on a full moon. So all the towns, all the territories need wardens to protect the people from their potential nightmares coming to life. So Clementine and her dad, they are both wardens of their small town. They actually get challenged by two other wardens for their territory. This is totally legit. This is the thing that happens. It's not nice, but it happens. And that is really where the story begins. And this changes Clementine. It changes her path in life, and she turns to the dark side a little bit. And I loved seeing that in a character. I loved seeing her bend magic for her own desires. There is a little bit of romance, but it really is this legend. Like, it's about this curse and everything that happens after that. This is one of those books that stayed with me. I read this months ago, and I still think about it to this day. But it's worth a read. It really is. Then we have to talk about two of my favorite books now, and that is Mile High and The Right Move, which are the first two books in the Windy City series. It is imperative that if you decide to pick up this KU sports romance series, that you start with Mile High. Because if you start with The Right Move, you're just going to be doing yourself a disservice. And if you're like, Kat, I follow you. You don't follow your own rules. Trust me, I do when it matters. This matters. So I can't really say too much. The first one follows Stevie. She is a flight attendant. And the other one is Sanders. He's a hockey player. It's a romance book about them. And then the second book follows characters that we meet from the first book. I'm currently reading book 3 right now. Loving it. I didn't finish it, so I can't put it in this list. But these books. With Mile High, give it 30%, because I almost gave up on this book because I was like, I don't think Xanders is for me. I'm not vibing with him. Then I did. There's tons of representation. There's pining, there's spice. It's well-rounded. They're longer books too, which you know are my jam. These are just perfection and definite new faves for me. Then last but not least, we have to talk about this because I think that this was an amazing YA debut. This is by Talia Hibbert, who wrote the Brown Sisters trilogy, and several other very popular adult romance books. So it is dual POV, and it follows two characters, Bradley, who is like the star of the football team, and he's an A+ student, and the other character is Celine, who is also a very good student, and she's also TikTok famous for her conspiracy theory videos. Celine and Bradley used to be best friends when they were little, but now they are definitely academic rivals. And one thing leads to another with this plot, and they both end up attending this survival week in the woods. There's a reason for this. You'll learn about it if you read the book, but this trip causes them to address why they drifted, what happened, why are they rivals, and all of that good stuff. And, you know, maybe along the way, they might realize that they have feelings for each other. You know the drill. This is just how it works. There was so much quality representation in this book, but a standout for me was Bradley talking about his OCD. There's also queer rep in this. There's just so much goodness, and I highly recommend. So those are my favorite books of 2023. I love these books. I feel so grateful that I read them, that I got to experience them, and hopefully if any of these spoke to you, that you will love them as well. So as always, please feel free to let me know what your favorite books of 2023 were, which books you feel like I should add to my TBR for 2024, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, book lovers.